Hey everybody, how's it going? So, last year when the pandemic first hit, indoor dining was no longer allowed at restaurants in New York City. It was believed that if you're indoors, you're more likely to contract COVID than if you're outdoors. So only outdoor dining was allowed, where you could have tables and chairs on the sidewalk and you could serve your patrons that way, which was what many restaurants decided to do because they still needed to pay their rent for their indoor location that they were no longer allowed to use. So you had people who were dining outdoors. Now, this can present a problem if a car comes by and it just kicks up dust and stuff into the area where the food is, so you'd have a little sidewall. And then every now and then, maybe it gets chilly, so you'd put up a sidewall and a larger sidewall. And then it starts to rain or snow, so you put up a roof and a ceiling. And then it's windy, so you get a window and maybe a door. And at some point, instead of it being outdoor dining, which would have actually helped, you wind up with indoor dining but outside, which is a meme that I've been covering for the past year. This is a meme dining shed that has a lock. If it has a lock, that probably means you're no longer outdoors. This is a meme dining shed that is virtually completely indoors. Little house in the street, kind of looks more like it's indoors. This is a meme indoor dining shed that has an air conditioner. If you have an air conditioner in your outdoor dining, it's most likely indoors, because if you could air condition the outdoors, we'd be able to fix global warming just like that. Put some Friedrichs by the polar ice caps and problem solved. This is something that I've talked about in detail. Now, memes do have consequences, and running your city as if it's a meme also comes with a consequence, which is something that I would like to discuss in this video. There is a piece of news that just came out, which is that one of these little dining sheds here got smashed into with a garbage truck and was dragged with a customer inside of it, which is something that virtually anybody that was paying attention to this for the last year and a half predicted would happen, and I imagine will continue to happen into the future. So let's take a look at this here.
Side Bar 6, that's on 6th Avenue and West 13th Street. Workers who witnessed it say it was scary. The customer inside the structure fortunately was not hurt. At the time of the accident, the driver of the truck was reportedly trying to pick up trash. That crash is under investigation.
Now, I'm not saying that it's right that the driver hit this dining shed. They're annoying when they're sitting in the middle of the street, and it most certainly increases the likelihood of hitting it, but it's not right that he hit it. That being said, building sheds in the middle of the street to try and keep COVID from spreading, because it doesn't spread as much outdoors as it does indoors, but the shed is indoors, you see how memes have consequences. And one of the things that drives people insane, like me and many others that just look at the legislation and the regulations in New York City, are where the city chooses to draw the line. So when it comes to dealing with the Department of Buildings, this is an absolute nightmare to anybody who's done construction in the city. If you deal with a contractor, before they even know who you are, they will just openly start talking to you about all the things they're going to do to get around having to deal with the Department of Buildings. The kind of crazy shit that we have going on here when it comes to doing any sort of construction, it's absolutely insane, where contractors are completely open and willing, because it is common practice, to talk about how they are going to get around the Department of Buildings because there are so many regulations. But you decide that you are going to build a shed on the street, which completely defeats the purpose of having outdoor dining, and they're like, LOL, okay. Someone tries to sell fruit in a neighborhood where there's not a lot of grocery stores, and the Department of Sanitation says, oh, you don't have the proper papers for that. Well, you're going to throw all your food away. And people are like, oh yeah, that's totally normal. But someone builds a shed in the middle of the street. No one gives a shit. I tried to sell a laptop that was recycled in my store, that I have records for, that I have detailed records for of me text messaging, calling, and emailing the customer, including recordings of the voicemail that we left to that customer over a year ago so that we could sell their device. And I get a fine from the city because I did not log me purchasing that laptop when I never purchased it so that I could sell it. And when I asked the city how to comply with this regulation, they can't tell me how to comply with it, but they can issue a fine for it. But you build a shed on the street, and that's okay. When people say that a lot of the regulations in this city are to keep you safe, it's because we care about you. It's because we care about you not eating something that may not be perfect. It's not that we're trying to keep away competition from the larger chains or and collect money from you. When you hear that the DCA exists to make sure that you don't get ripped off, in spite of the fact that there are dozens of stores ripping people off on a regular basis that still have licenses, and the fact that Yelp and Google reviews chargebacks on credit cards are far more effective than anything the DCA could ever do, keep in mind that this is not about protecting you. It's not about making anything better. It's a way to collect money. Because when you get to the point where almost every restaurant in the city has built a shed on the street that is indoors so that they could say that the dining is happening outdoors, and the city turns a blind eye to it, in spite of the fact that cars were crashing into these last year and garbage trucks are dragging people after hitting them this year, and nobody cares. In a city where they will have the Department of Sanitation come to a poor, low-income neighborhood and actually destroy the fruit that someone is selling to the people in that neighborhood to try and save them money because they didn't have a license that they couldn't get because the city is so fucked up that they have a nonprofit dedicated to getting people licenses that can't get them. I want you to think about just what a shitpost this all is. You should understand at that point that so much of what our city government does is just one giant shitpost to collect money from people. It's not about protecting you. It's not about servicing you. It's not about ensuring that that everything is fully safe all the time. It's a way to collect money. And this just makes it abundantly clear. Anybody with half a brain could have looked at this and seen that this was eventually going to happen, that this was bound to happen numerous times, and nobody cared. People like me were pointing out that when you have a lock and windows and doors, that's no longer outdoors, that's indoors. That this is no longer outdoors, that's indoors. That when you put an air conditioner in something and you have the ability to control the climate of that area, that you are no longer outdoors. You're indoors. No, nobody cares. Nobody cares. That's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye now. And I'm truly glad that nobody was hurt throughout this. I'm glad that memes at least don't have dire consequences. But they do have consequences.